Hello everyone. As someone that's interested in the Fortean, I am often very interested in what ifs. You know, the idea of alternative realities and different dimensions. Every action creates a new dimension and new reality. So I've been thinking about a couple today to try and, well, cheer myself up, as quite often one has to. Now, I'm going to talk to you about two separate realities that could have been quite interesting in their own separate and unique ways. The first one was in 1966, when England won the World Cup. Harold Wilson, the then Prime Minister, had fallen out with the Commonwealth. As a result, he looked at making the United Kingdom the 51st state of America. Talks went on for over a year. Now, what would have happened had the UK become part of the United States? Well, we would have lost some things. The NHS, for example, which had only been around for a few years at that point. 1948 it first appeared. So we would have lost that. We would have gained higher living standards, which would have been absolutely fantastic. There's no getting around that. I sometimes wonder if this would have been a good outcome, as we would be part of a constitutional republic. We would no longer have a monarchy. That wouldn't be that bad in my eyes. There would be plenty of other good things that would come with that. We would have freedom of speech. We'd guaranteed the rights to protect ourselves. Frankly, that doesn't sound too bad. The other thing is the political spectrum would have changed. Some of the politicians that we know on both sides of this pond that have been in power over that time may well not have been in power. Some of them may well not have got into the high offices that they actually have today. Some would have been no more than senators or governors or even mayors of cities and states and councillors. There's probably no way that half of the politicians we know on both sides of the pond today would even be there. On a massive upside, the UK would have President Trump right now. Also, on top of that, would the US have joined the Commonwealth? As Britain was a major part of the Commonwealth, you have to wonder, would that have been a thing? Would the US have joined the Commonwealth and then made it into a bigger trading platform than it is or even could be? Or would nations like Australia and Canada risen quicker than they actually have done? I don't know. It's an interesting possibility, and I'd like to think that you would think about that. There are downsides. Another part of the United States would have appeared during the Cold War at striking distance on Moscow. That would have risen tensions in the Cold War itself. However, socialism and communism always fail, so it wouldn't have been forever, but it would have been a lot scarier, especially for the United States, as we would have been at the time. The other possibility that I've been thinking about arose in 1956. France nearly joined the United Kingdom. Let that sink in. It's not even the first time after World War II that was floated as a possibility, and Parliament voted it down. Parliament voted it down twice in reality. Now, what would have been with that? Two giant economic powerhouses of Europe, two of the biggest nations, joining together. Well, for one, France would have ended up with a monarchy for the first time since the revolution. I'm not sure how that would have sat, but it would have been a thing. On top of that, you'd have the two major cities in Paris and London having to share power. The Premier's place of residence, for example, would be between number 10 and what it is in Paris. I forget, because, you know, France, who cares? Also, the distance involved for the Prime Minister to travel over, especially before the tunnel, that would have cost the taxpayer quite a bit of money, as planes in particular were not cheap back then. I suppose the next question that you have to have is, would Britain have joined the EU as quickly as it had, or quicker, or would it have been later, or not at all? Again, power would have been very different as a result. However, all the major players that we know probably would have been involved. It's just a question of who might have been the premier at the time. So, knowing that France were the country that vetoed us from the ECM, as it was, would they have joined us in quicker, maybe? Or would they have turned around and gone, well, hang on, there's the Commonwealth, here's our colonies, we've become one, we're bigger, is there any need for the EU? Well, what was to become the EU? It does raise a rather large question. Sadly, I think that we still would have gone in, and we probably would have had a difficulty today coming out. But that's still something to think about, nonetheless. The other thing is free speech, and the right to protect yourself would still be an issue in the UK today, as no one has those things outside of America, really, especially freedom of speech. The Constitution itself is an excellent piece of kit. So I'm not really sure which of these two possibilities I would prefer. I think the one that we're in right now may well be the best of all three options. Maybe America, being part of America, would have been better ultimately, especially with a lot of things that are going on today in the outcry in the public for free speech. But the main reason I'm putting this out isn't really just for me to think through, it's actually for you. So what would you think of the best of these possibilities? Would it be as it is? Would it be joining America? Or would it be owning France? Yeah, let me know.